My name is Carolina, and 6 months ago, my husband Richard died in a car accident. We'd only been married for 2 years, and I was still learning to breathe without him. The last thing I expected was for his family to show up at my door demanding jewelry. "Carolina, we need to talk about the ring," my mother-in-law Margaret said, standing on my porch with her sister Diane beside her. Both wore matching expressions of practiced sympathy. "What ring?" I asked, confused. "The one Richard gave you," Margaret replied, walking past me into my living room without invitation. "The family heirloom. It belonged to his great-grandmother." I looked down at the platinum band on my finger, set with what Richard had called a modest diamond. "This?" "Richard said it was his great-grandmother's, but he gave it to me. It's my wedding ring." "Exactly," Diane chimed in. "And now that Richard is gone, it should return to the family. That's how heirlooms work, dear." My chest tightened. "Are you seriously asking me to give up my wedding ring?" Margaret sat on my couch, folding her hands. "We understand you're emotional, but this ring has been in our family for generations. It needs to stay in the bloodline. You and Richard didn't have children, so there's no reason for you to keep it." "The reason is that it's my wedding ring," I said, my voice shaking. "Richard gave it to me as a symbol of our marriage." "A marriage that unfortunately ended," Margaret said coldly. "We're not trying to be cruel, Carolina, but family treasures belong with family. It's just a ring to you, but it means everything to us. Sentimental value." I crossed my arms. "If it's just sentimental, why do you need it right now? Richard's been gone 6 months." "We've given you time to grieve," Diane said. "But we need to preserve our family legacy. Surely you understand." "What I understand is that you're asking me to hand over something my husband gave me," I replied. "The answer is no." Margaret's expression hardened. "Richard would have wanted it returned to the family. He told me himself that he worried about what would happen to family heirlooms if anything happened to him." "That's convenient that he supposedly said that, and now he's not here to confirm it," I shot back. "Are you calling me a liar?" Margaret stood up, her voice rising. "I'm trying to be reasonable here, Carolina. That ring belongs to our family. Legally, you might have some claim, but morally, it should come back to us." "Then take me to court," I said, walking to the front door and opening it. "Because I'm not giving you my wedding ring based on your supposed moral authority." Margaret grabbed her purse. "You're being selfish and disrespectful to Richard's memory. He would be ashamed." "Don't you dare tell me what Richard would think," I said, tears burning my eyes. "He loved me. He gave me this ring. Now please leave." After they left, I called my best friend Diana. "You won't believe what just happened." "Try me," she said. I explained the whole encounter. "They acted like I was stealing from them, like I was the bad guy for wanting to keep my own wedding ring." "That's insane," Diana replied. "Girl, something's not right. Why would they be so aggressive about getting it back if it's just sentimental?" "I don't know," I admitted, looking at the ring on my finger. But Margaret kept emphasizing how it's been in the family for generations, how it's just sentimental value, nothing more. "Exactly," Diana said. "If it were just sentimental, they'd respect that it's also sentimental to you. You were married to her son, for God's sake. There's something else going on." "You think so?" "Carolina, I've known you for 15 years. Trust your gut. When has Margaret ever cared about sentimentality? Remember when she sold Richard's childhood home without telling him because she got a good offer? She was right. Margaret was many things, but sentimental wasn't one of them. What should I do? I asked. Get that ring appraised, Diana said immediately. Find out what you're really dealing with. I have a friend who's a gemologist. Let me set up an appointment. 3 days later, Diana and I sat in Dr. Sarah Mitchell's office, a sleek space filled with specialized equipment and certifications on the walls. Thank you for seeing us on short notice, I said, sliding the ring across her desk. Diana said it was important, Dr. Mitchell replied, examining the ring under a loupe. Let me take a closer look. She worked in silence for several minutes, using various tools and making notes. Finally, she looked up, her expression serious. Carolina, how much do you know about this ring? She asked. Just that it was my husband's great-grandmother's ring. His family says it's a family heirloom, sentimental value only. Dr. Mitchell laughed sharply. Sentimental value? This is a 5-carat Golconda diamond, flawless clarity, D-color grade. The setting is platinum with micro pave diamonds. This isn't a family heirloom someone keeps in a jewelry box. This is a piece worth approximately $850,000. My mouth fell open. What? I can provide you with a full certification and appraisal, but I can tell you right now, this is one of the most valuable pieces I've seen this year, Dr. Mitchell continued. Golconda diamonds are extremely rare. They come from specific mines in India that haven't been productive for over a century. Diana grabbed my hand. And let me guess, Margaret told you it was just a modest family ring. She said it was sentimental, I replied, my mind reeling. She never mentioned any value. She acted like she wanted it back purely for family legacy reasons. Because if you knew what it was worth, you'd never give it up, Dr. Mitchell said. Someone is trying to manipulate you out of nearly $1 million. I felt sick. Richard never told me. Did he even know? It's possible he didn't, Dr. Mitchell replied gently. If his family downplayed its value to him too, he might have thought it was just a nice vintage ring. But I guarantee you, Margaret knows. Anyone who's had this appraised would know. After leaving Dr. Mitchell's office with a full appraisal document, Diana drove me straight to her lawyer's office. Robert Chen is the best, she assured me. He handled my sister's estate dispute. Robert Chen was a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who listened to my story without interruption. Do you have the appraisal? He asked. I handed him Dr. Mitchell's documentation. He read through it, nodding. This is fraud, plain and simple, he said. They attempted to coerce you into surrendering valuable property by deliberately misrepresenting its worth. Do you have any record of your conversations with Margaret? I didn't record anything, I said, my heart sinking. That's fine. Did anyone witness the conversation? No, just Margaret and her sister Diane. Robert leaned back in his chair. Here's what we're going to do. I'll send a cease and desist letter informing them that you're aware of the ring's true value, and any further harassment will result in legal action. I'll also mention that we're considering filing a police report for attempted fraud. Will that work? I asked. It'll make them think twice, Robert replied. People like this count on intimidating their victims into compliance. Once they realize you know what they were trying to do, they typically back off. If they don't, we escalate. What if they claim Richard promised them the ring? I asked. Then they'll need to prove it, Robert said firmly. You're his widow. The ring was a gift to you. Unless there's a will specifically stating otherwise, it's your property. And even if there were such a will, they'd have to execute it honestly, not through deception. Diana squeezed my shoulder. "We've got this, Carolina. They picked the wrong person to mess with." Robert's letter had the expected effect. 2 days later, Margaret called, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "We need to meet," she said. "This has gotten out of hand." "I agree," I replied. "Your attempt to defraud me definitely got out of hand." "I don't know what you're talking about," she snapped. "Then let's discuss it in person. My lawyer will be present." We met at Robert's office. Margaret brought Diane and a man she introduced as her lawyer, Tom Bradford. "This is ridiculous," Margaret began. "We're family. We shouldn't need lawyers." "We became non-family the moment you tried to steal from me," I said calmly. "Steal?" Margaret's face reddened. "That ring belongs to our family." "Actually, it belongs to Carolina," Robert interjected. "It was a gift from her husband. She has every legal right to it." "We never said she didn't have a legal right," Tom Bradford said smoothly. "My client simply requested the return of a family heirloom. There's no law against asking." "There are laws against fraud and coercion," Robert replied. "You told Carolina the ring had only sentimental value. You failed to mention it's worth $850,000. The room went silent. Diane's face went pale, but Margaret recovered quickly. "We didn't know the exact value," she said. "Liar," I said quietly. "You had it appraised." "Richard told me about the appraisal when his great-grandmother died. He said you took all her jewelry to be valued for insurance purposes." Margaret's jaw clenched. "That was years ago." "So you did know," Robert said, making a note. "You knowingly misrepresented the value of this item to coerce my client into surrendering it. That's textbook fraud." "It's still our family heirloom," Margaret insisted. "Carolina has no right to keep it, just because Richard made a mistake in giving it to her." "A mistake?" I felt my anger rising. "He married me. He loved me. Giving me his great-grandmother's ring wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." "A choice he made without understanding the full picture," Diane added. "If he'd known how valuable it was, he would have given me something even more precious because he loved me," I finished. "You can't stand that, can you? You can't stand that Richard chose me, that he built a life with me, that he wanted me to have something meaningful." "This isn't about love. It's about property," Margaret said coldly. "That ring is worth a fortune. You're not entitled to our family's wealth." "Then you should have thought about that before Richard gave it to me," I replied. "It's mine now, legally, morally, and in every way that matters." Tom Bradford cleared his throat. "Perhaps we can reach a settlement. My client could purchase the ring from you at fair market value." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "This isn't about money. This is my wedding ring. It's the last gift my husband gave me." "Then what do you want?" Margaret demanded. "I want you to leave me alone," I said. "I want you to stop harassing me, stop calling me, stop showing up at my house. I want you to accept that this ring is mine and move on with your lives." "And if we don't?" Margaret asked. Robert pulled out a folder. "Then my client will file a police report for attempted fraud and harassment. She'll also pursue a restraining order. And I should mention, we've documented everything, including your admission just now that you knew the ring's value when you attempted to retrieve it under false pretenses." Margaret stood up abruptly. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is," Robert said. "If you contact my client again, we'll see you in court." 1 week later, I sat in Robert's office again, but this time the atmosphere was different. Diana had brought coffee and pastries, and we were celebrating. "The restraining order was approved," Robert said, sliding the document across his desk. Margaret and Diane cannot contact you, come within 500 feet of your home, or make any further claims on the ring. It's really over? I asked, still barely believing it. It's really over, he confirmed. The judge was particularly unimpressed with their behavior. When Margaret tried to argue in court that the ring should stay in the family, the judge asked her why she'd tried to acquire it through deception rather than legal channels. She had no good answer. Diana raised her coffee cup. To Carolina, for not letting them bully you. To having good friends and a great lawyer, I replied, clinking cups with her. Robert smiled. I have to say, this was one of the more satisfying cases I've handled. The look on Margaret's face when the judge denied her petition was priceless. What did she say? I asked. She tried one last plea, Robert recalled. She stood up and said, Your Honor, that ring has been in our family for 4 generations. My great-grandmother wore it. My grandmother wore it. And my son gave it away without understanding its significance. And what did the judge say? He said, Mrs. Abbott, your son gave that ring to his wife as a wedding ring. That was absolutely his right. The fact that you attempted to retrieve it through misrepresentation rather than honest communication tells me everything I need to know about the validity of your claim. The ring stays with Mrs. Abbott, and you are prohibited from any further contact with her regarding this matter or any other. I felt tears forming, but they were tears of relief. I can't believe she actually thought she'd win. People like Margaret always think they'll win, Diana said. They're so used to manipulating and controlling others that they can't imagine facing consequences. Speaking of consequences, Robert added, the district attorney's office reviewed the evidence. While they've decided not to press criminal charges, they did send Margaret a warning letter about her conduct. If she ever tries something like this again with anyone, she'll face prosecution. Good, I said firmly. Maybe it'll make her think twice before trying to scam someone else. There was a knock on the door, and Dr. Sarah Mitchell entered, carrying a small box. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said. I wanted to deliver this personally. She handed me the box. Inside was my ring, newly cleaned and polished, along with a full certification of authenticity. It's beautiful, I breathed, slipping it back onto my finger where it belonged. It is, Dr. Mitchell agreed. And now you know exactly what you have. I also included documentation about the ring's history. It turns out it was purchased in 1889 by Richard's great-great-grandfather for his bride. It's been a wedding ring for over a century. So it was always meant to be a wedding ring, I said softly. Exactly. Margaret was trying to break a tradition, not preserve one. After Dr. Mitchell left, Diana looked at me seriously. How are you really feeling about all this? Honestly? Relieved, I admitted, but also sad. I wanted to believe Margaret cared about family and tradition, not just money. I wanted to think better of her. She made her choices, Robert said gently. You made yours. You chose to honor Richard's gift and protect yourself. That took courage. It took anger, I corrected. When I realized she'd tried to manipulate me, tried to use my grief against me, I couldn't let her get away with it. That's not just anger. That's self-respect, Diana said. You refused to be a victim. I looked at the ring on my finger, thinking about Richard and everything we'd shared. You know what Margaret never understood? This ring isn't valuable to me because it's worth $850,000. It's valuable because Richard chose me. He chose us. And no amount of money or intimidation will ever change that. Have you thought about what you'll do with it? Robert asked. Now that you know its value. Keep wearing it, I said immediately. It's my wedding ring. That's what it was meant to be, and that's what it'll stay. Maybe someday I'll have a daughter or granddaughter who'll wear it on her wedding day, continuing the tradition Richard's great-great-grandfather started. Diana smiled. He'd like that. He would, I agreed. And Margaret? She can live with the fact that she destroyed what was left of our relationship over her own greed. I tried to include her in my life after Richard died. I invited her to dinners, sent her photos, tried to maintain a connection. She threw all that away because she saw me as someone to exploit instead of family. That's her loss, Robert said. You walked away from this with your dignity and your rights intact. That's what matters. As I left Robert's office that day, ring secure on my finger and restraining order in my purse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Margaret had tried to take advantage of my grief, but instead, she'd given me something unexpected, the strength to stand up for myself and the clarity to see who truly cared about me. Have you ever had someone try to use your emotions against you to get something they wanted? What would you have done if your in-laws demanded you return your wedding ring? Like and subscribe for more stories about people who refused to be victims and fought back the right way.